So let's recap in simple, conventional, accessible tone. So first of all, just stand in clarity about the narrative contrast that you follow. You just have to be so brutal in your honesty. And I will be brutal in saying that there is a species of love that I can discern in my destiny, and I want to establish it to make it active and alive, and I give it the adequate bodies for that. The method is like this. The method is like this. Establish the outrageous possibility. Establish the nature of this ruthless capacity of the motherly love that can discern the voice of the crying child in the thickets of darkness. What is this sharp mind blade made of? Stand in this brutal, outrageous capacity of the symbol body, the tree anatomy, the taming of the lightning-like power of this insight, the outrageous possibility. So I observe that this discipline of the symbolic body is adequate to the presence that I desire, to the exact voice of this species of love that I desire to attain, so as to make active, to make it alive and within a thrilling sense of meaning. What is this sharp mind blade made of? If your most advanced capacities of faith give you a certain vision, then where is the integrity of standing coherent in the logic of that vision? Where is the necessary discipline of integrity? I proceed in basic honesty to find the possibility of honesty, which is so fucking improbable. Where is the true caliber of integrity? Where is the standing in integrity? Where is the discipline for such a possibility? And how does one hide in a fake icon of what the behavior of love is? How can one hide cowardly in the fake icon of what love is? What is this sharp mind blade made of? What is this blade of discernment made of? What is this mind made of? And I open my eyes and I see it with this stabilized field of attention. It can be Van Gogh or it can be Kiefer. Like if I look at these branches and I see the exact aesthetics of Kiefer, that is the established spiritual domain, when you can stand with discerning fields of attention. So let's say I stabilize in my flesh my love for Van Gogh. And Van Gogh was kind enough, fierce enough with his love to clarify the nature of his attention into the world. So he made these paintings to allow others to see like he did, or to feel like he did. And all others creators the same. So I want to stand in a world like this, in which shall make your body whole. Redefine identity. I stand in this culture in which identity is redefined. So if the identity of Van Gogh is defined as his exact quality of attention, then if I clarify that in my own flesh as something that I truly love, that I want to be with, and maybe Kiefer, and maybe... Just need to tell you in very simple terms, just be honest. And when I say you, I can mean anything, and I can mean everything. Any family of artists, any orchestra of clarified spirits, I can say that I am fully with them in this moment, and I can shift attention into any such field of presence. So wouldn't that be a nice way of living, in which you stand in the celebration of purified spirit forms in any simple circumstance of life? Wouldn't that be a gift? Now what is this symbol about? If you attain this masterpiece language, this is like a completely attained language. So what is it? What the fuck is this? What is this blade made of? What is this capacity to kill anything through exact discernment? What is this capacity to deactivate belief through precise discernment of fields? Would that be a skillful gift? Wouldn't that be worth dying for, to achieve such a culture? So stand brutally clear in defining this symbol anatomy, this symbol body, the discipline of the symbolic presence, which can discern like an antenna, discerning fields of attention. And I think of Eli with her definition of this you. Come on! Like, what can you hold when you say you? What can you hold in your attention, and how can your attention shift so fiercely and so brutally to refer to everything and anything? There is no limit to the precision of subtlety. There is no limit to the precision of the spirit that can produce high speed of dialogues between logical frames. There is no limit in this direction of subtlety. There is no limit in how attention can be trained into the horizon of subtlety. To deactivate, disengage belief through precise discernment. Ruthless love of a mother that can engage any power of attitude for the protection, for saving their children. Understand the voice of pain coming from the unachieved substance of love that you can discern in your field, and you follow that voice and you understand the thicket of ignorance or the thicket of definitions that keep it prisoner or keep it paralyzed, and you fucking grasp its nature. You produce the necessary faculties, the sharp faculties, the clarity of mind and heart, so as to attain that and to reconfigure it in the body of your own existence right now, so as to step out of the petty definition of what your identity is and what the nature of the present moment is and what the nature of this reality is. There is no limit in this discipline of attaining the refinement, the precise, the clear, the stabilized quality of clarified love. How is your capacity to move the definition of the you, the secret of the logical generosity? The precious promise is that there is no limit in this discipline. This is the fucking secret of the logical generosity. There is no limit in what the attention of the purified spirit can achieve. To stand in brutal dialogue, which is the dialogue of worlds. Meaning that in this discipline of the symbol capacity, I call it subversive anatomy, that you can stand in an improbable logic. The attention can accelerate the discernment of tastes of the fabric of logic. Blade logic, what is this sharp discernment? What is the nature of this sharp discernment? What is this capacity to kill? What is this capacity to disengage belief with any subtle sequence of movement? What is your adherence to a certain logical field? Let's say that one places their foot of determination onto the ground like this, with the ruthlessness of a mother clearly discerning the cries of their child, which is a certain species of love, a certain capacity of being. What is the nature of this sharp mind blade? And attaining the capacity to travel through the discernment of logical domains, stabilize morphologies of logical dimensions, surgical mind. So this is kind of the birthing of the body of a discipline. You understand the fruits of this, you understand that any fields of ecstatic love that you have, even if you want to speak naively about artists that you love or philosophers or visionaries that your heart can immediately go to, you stand in this discipline that they are real and you attain the realization of the joy, or you produce the scale of the joy, or you allow your heart to expand in such a way so as to produce the reality that can hold that celebration of being, that can organically hold together all these morphologies of fields or morphologies of attention. This is another aspect of the method. It feels like attaining this lightning capacity is rather, you know, the force of revelation in front of a masterpiece, or the shocking nature of how some styles of painting just shocked the fibers of history. Let's say expressionism or gestualism. What is the nature of this sharp blade of discernment? What is the nature of this violent surgical blade? There is a scale of contrast in the shifting logical fields that makes life and death feel like toys. There is a new species of monumentality in the capacity to stabilize logical positions, the capacity of sacrifice in the very fucking flesh of logic, the pretemporal spaciousness of the choice of logical fields. If you could attain such a fucking life that would move in perfect discernment of these shifts of historical tendency, like if you could live like this, standing in this possibility of a life, can you make your full life expression a constant, relevant, necessary historical disruption? Stabilize very subtle forms of attention, unusual. Stabilize unusual forms of attention that are not in the objective frame, in the conventional language forms. This is one kind of training. There is a gradual training in the brutality of discernment. Come on! Where is your precision in discerning exact fields of being that you want to have with you? That is somehow outrageous as a possibility. Can you frame your life so as to stand in the completely necessary revolution? You don't fucking need the historical approval, like if I say Marcel Duchamp or I say any bold current that revolutionized our perspective needed some historical consequence or resonance so as to become available and believable and to shape the direction of our culture. But what if you were to stand in this ferociously mad capacity to produce cultural shifts within the flesh of your existence right in this very moment, and to stand in these shocking probabilities continuously, and you would not need the temporal approval of some kind of resonance of other people that would enjoy it or like it or accept it. What if you could stand in such a fiber of existence that would be a complete revolution every second, like what a historical revolution is? Where is your exact, precise, advanced crystal heart? Come on. Continuous sacrificing of misleading forms of identity. Stand in the nature of the field with all the species of attitude that were gradually training this historical animal into this new capacity. Stand with those spines of function that were able to instill this discipline into the animal ignorance of this historical shape. Where is this taming of all bodies of capacities into bright, pure, exact intelligence? Discernment, come on. Logical bloodlines. Stand in this new tree of the logical bloodlines. Stand in this new species of birth. Understand how you get to be born into a certain possibility of act, into a certain logical shape. Observe the nature of this other causal fabric. Observe the nature of this other kind of fabric of identity. Come on. Where is your capacity? It's just like a seed secret in standing in honesty, and I think it's related to them. I think it's just, this is an act of gratitude to my children, because I am with them now and I stand in this clarity because of them. So kind of it makes sense to speak about the fierce. It makes sense if I speak about the ferocious dragon child, which is the way a child can stand in front of reality, because a child does not share the same logical ground. So a child is fierce in this way, that you cannot break their logical capacity. There is some secret there. I just want to specify the nature of this. The entry into the kingdoms of honesty is always so difficult, and you can just miss it. You can simply go on to some stupid ranting, like into some random purpose, and you can act on a wrong story if you're not in the very fiber of honesty. And that is like, oh, so fucking difficult, to be honest. And when I say honest, I say, come on, I know what it felt for me to discover the Buddha. What the fuck? Who can contradict me? Like, what the fuck? I know what the taste of that was. I remember clearly, and I am so fucking committed to that. And I can just observe in myself the ways I get distorted by what I project as the understanding of the others, or the ways they would not understand it, or misunderstanding, or judge it, or whatever. And also the fact that I define it in certain ways, like the fact that I define it related to a moment in the past, related to my studies, my whatever the fuck. It's a very fundamental structure that produces this fragmentation, this lack of honesty, that I cannot be in the purity of establishing that exactly, precisely, firmly, clearly. So just this beginning, and I'm like, I stand on my knees in front of my children and I take them as not only partners but masters in the most severely serious way. Right? And here they are. Come on! You understand the taste of this capacity? Do you grasp the scale of this capacity? Can you fucking taste the scale of this possibility? Not only revolution, but revelation. Let's think of Christ or the Buddha or whatever other visionary that kind of morphed reality into something totally else? What if you could do that? What if you would be in this freedom of doing that without any echo of a reality? What if you would be so fiercely mad that you would want to establish this, like you would have the capacity to produce the historical consequences immediately? And if one thinks of AI, one can see that this is really fucking possible. And then when you advance deeper into it and you get fierce about it and you get so mad, how would it be that your attention of the heart can get so fiercely clear that you can fucking dance in the most ecstatic party with the most advanced beloved spirits that you may long for? Be that Van Gogh, Wittgenstein, Christ, Buddha, whatever the fuck you may summon in your field of capacity. It is only a matter of precision of the heart. You put your hands onto this possibility of, okay, what if any frame of existence would be a masterpiece, but not only a masterpiece in the usual sense, but like a thoroughly disrupting act of the spirit, like the urinal of Duchamp or the exhibition of the Impressionists, whatever. But you do not need to observe a historical consequence of that. You do not need some kind of resonance of approval from some kind of historical following. You can just enter this possibility of existence in which you can shift through revolution and through continuous sequences of revelation, that you can simulate the historical consequences, and you do not need this resonance of approval that we function with, that kind of occupies or mutilates our being. And then you are guided by the fierce power of a child that can follow any shapes of their aspiration or any shapes of morphologies of feeling. So then you are guided by this body of the fierce, monstrous, terrifying dragon child, or the quality of this encounter, which is some sort of final judgment or revelation. It is only a matter of the union between the clarified mind, the extended vast heart, and the lucid realization of the void, which means the relativity of meaning in any archive of experiential matter. So if you can fucking signify any species of motion, any species of act, of perception, of sensation, of feeling, of memory, anything gets so fluidly tamed so as to attain this advanced ecstatic dialogue and adventure of the purified, exact, vast fields of being that you can long for, that your heart naturally fucking longs for. You produce in your transcendental domain such a shift of possibility, like you produce a quality of existence that was never before, like a possibility of life that was never before. And this is like going deeper and deepest into the mother roads of madness. Whatever substances of the spirit there may be, to discover them, it's like going on a wild hunt into some continents that we never thought existed, like discovering civilizations or fucking kingdoms of existence that we had absolutely no faculty for or no possible imagination for. And you could live like this. You could live in this constant revolution, and you would have all the capacities to stand in the realization of them at a cultural level, at a universal level. They do not remain as simple They are not just figments of some subtle forms of delusion or imagination or feeling or whatever, intuition. And you face this divine brutal capacity with a certain cunning capacity, which is you understand that anything that is in the nature of terrifying is actually cunning in a certain way, that if it's coming from the beloved, it is basically a challenge that wants you to awaken into a brutal revelation, that whatever you can encounter as fiercely difficult, you define it in the logic of this love that you can stand with, like the divine love that is shocking you in the most terribly wonderful way, or ecstatic, or whatever. So, okay, in order to have the provisions for this discipline, you stand with the discipline of Wittgenstein that can tell you, if you are in that lucid understanding of his domain of insight, you know that there is no experience that is not formed within your freedom of definition, like the capacity to go to the next moment is absolutely unconditioned by anything. So this is related to the insight of there is no necessary form of applying a rule. There is no necessary mechanism of applying a rule. Whatever coherence of life, whatever coherence of action in a culture, like we define a certain way of counting and we decide that there is a formula that determines this way of counting. Well, we have this wrong imagination that a definition or a formula will define what we do, but this is never the case. And you can stand in this clarity with Wittgenstein, and then you see that there is no experience that will ever force you into one way of behavior or other, or there is no form of experience that will determine what your logical domain is. And this is the very crucial, precious, subtle, enormously important insight of the discerning of logical field and experiential field, and that they are actually not interfering with one another. Language does not interfere with experience in this conception or dual conception that we have. So observe the sharp blade of this other mother, the sharp blade of the fierce eyes of this other mother, this other fucking mother. Stand in your real birth, stand in this other identity, this new, sharp rebirth. Come on. What is this? Observe the shape of your will. Observe the fucking symbol, the fucking exact symbol of your posture. Observe the nature of this posture and observe the ancestors of the possibility of this posture. Observe the equations of logical causality. Observe this other tree of origin. That is, where do you get the fucking courage to stand in a certain posture? Observe the ripples created in the interference between logical fields. If you place this as your ground, what do you mean? If you stand in this principle that the highest possibility is just the ground of truth, is just the beginning, the highest probability, the highest thing you can touch with your spirit, with your hope, with your dream, with your heart, with your mind, with your intuition, that is the ground of your truth. That is the very beginning of life. If you stand in this discipline of the outrageous. Do you have a voice that can contradict the resonance of this stupid, inertial, conventional definition of a life, of a world, of a context? Are you mad enough to stand in clarity of this advanced, multi-field love? then you understand it's kind of the most basic duty. Whatever outrageous form of ideal you can touch with your blades of aspiration, your forehead morphed into stainless steel blades of aspiration, whatever fabrics of the limit of reality you can touch and move and shape and make them vibrate with the ecstasy of your desire. It's like you can be so bold in advancing into what life is, what life can be, so as to produce earthquakes of ecstasy in the flesh of the limits of reality, which basically means take the body of the fierce dragon child, just take that fucking body of piercing through all of these fabrics of subtle imaginations of what reality is, with the weapons of your purity, with the weapons of your densely purified heart, with the weapons of your clarified discernment, which basically means you have all the resources and all the motives because you can hold so much in your field of pain and love and ecstasy and terror and everything you can hold together as clearly as you can. Then you have all the resources and all the motive and all the capacity for such an adventure. And then you can go in this wild hunt of scaring off the small petty definitions of what this universe is. That's what I mean by reaching the fabrics of the limit of reality, like reaching the fabric of the void at the limit of reality. And with this advanced force of ecstasy in which you consider like, I am cold by this, I am thoroughly desired by this brutally violent limit of reality, and it's a kind of cunning calling, in the sense like a lover would provoke you with its absence, with their absence, like that lover that you desire most, and that lover that holds all the most improbable qualities and capacities and scales of vision and adventure. That one, this is one thing, but also with Husserl you have the same insight that there is no experience that is not formed in this complex of processes of constitution, which is basically standing on the field of belief, like the worldview that you have at any given point. So basically you have these forms of access to this insight, like Husserl and Wittgenstein, with you, like wings. And then you can travel clearly in this fierce speed of breaking the gates of probability, breaking the gates of possibility, and advancing into the fibers, the fabrics of impossibility, which is some kind of digging deeper into the mother lodes of transcendental substances and like going into the fucking skull of the divine and feeling whatever is there to be felt and deciding what advancement is in that, which is basically like giving the gift or responding to the gift of love. Responding means like giving a thoroughly unexpected gift. It's like you respond to your master by killing the master. You respond with taking the path further in unexpected ways. You will be faithful to your master by killing its legacy in such a cunning and advanced and unexpected way that takes it to a whole new level. So this is happening in relation to your master, but it happens in relation to your beloved in this highly accelerated exchange of the shocking revelation of love, meaning that you are shocked by the revelation of the beloved, but then you shock the beloved with the revelation of what you can become as somehow an unexpected consequence of the gift of their presence. The gift of their possibility will be honored thus. The gift of their possibility will be honored thus. The method of the tree anatomy. The method of the lightning taming. When your heart is fucking clear, then you establish the reality of any vision that you can touch on. If your heart is clear, established in its own domain of responsibility, then whatever vision does not have to be shared or acknowledged or accepted as true. If you love it enough, you make it fucking real. If you love them enough, you make them fucking real. When you face the void limits of reality, like when you reach naked ground of what possible beliefs about reality are, and you take the fierce dragon body of the child so as to scare them off or to disintegrate them or to disintegrate any kind of limit, because you are kind of fueled by this immaculate, improbable, impossible love that is the love for that scale of reality which is basically impossible, or you can give birth to it but you have no precedent for that. You have no precedent for advancing into such a scale of revolution or such a speed of revolution of the spirit. You do not need any precedent, and you do not need any resonance, or you do not need any approval for sanity. You do not need any historical consequence, probable consequence, because you can simulate any possible history with the summoned qualities and capacities and forces in this process. So it's just like a child, like a game of challenging the possibilities of existence. Come on! Stand in this other kind of birth. Where is your flight capacity? It is so brutally simple, brutally honest, this new capacity of logic. Where is your advanced blindness? It is unbearable and invisible because of its subtlety. Where is your highly skillful blindness? When you understand somehow a bit about the nature of reality, the void nature of this absolute freedom of the spirit, when you understand that the spirit can advance into any scale of possibility with any kind of speed and any kind of body, any kind of capacity, then if you take this discipline seriously and you stand fierce and clear and noble in it, it's like you understand that the most basic act of love for anyone around you is to stand firm and clear in the most radical absorption of mythopoetic creation, or in that encounter with fundamental universal origin. You go in this wild hunt, this wild war against possibility and against probability. You crush the gates of probability, and then you aim for the empires of possibility, and then you step into the raging substances of the flesh of impossibility, maybe formlessness. Or so stand in this discipline and ask this question: what clarified fields ripple together so as to produce the possibility of this posture? It's like opening the gates of madness, like a very subtle and fierce and clear and diamond madness, in which you no longer need any resonance of rationality, any resonance of
inertial approval, any resonance of the possibility of some people adhering to your vision. You reach to this point where you no longer need that. You allow yourself, even in the most gratuitous play of existence, because that is basically a child. That is the fierce nature of a child, that they are completely unaware of this dictatorship of the real, or the dictatorship of the approval of others and what you might do in your honesty of being, in the kingdoms of pure diamond honesty of your play, of your joy, of your vision, of the morphologies of your spirit. So a child is not bound by our dictatorship of what is commonly accepted, what is approved, what is possibly relevant or possibly sane.
What kind of clarified fields can ripple together so as to produce the possibility of this function? What kind of purified logical fields can desire one another so as to produce a shape of will? In this new domain, identity is the discernment of the architecture, the skeleton, the anatomy, the perfect ecstatic fibers of will, of the equation of gesture.
Subtlest, most precious, most intoxicating substances of your spirit, of the transcendental elements that you can touch. You go into the fucking skull of the divine and you feel all that is to feel related to all possible worlds or all possible ecstasies. You just digest and integrate and handle them all fully, totally, all highest possibilities of existence in whatever direction. And then you stand in this capacity to immensely cunning, subtle capacity to go beyond, to stretch beyond, to produce something new so as to just overwhelm the very origin of existence, to produce such a gift that is like a gift for the divine, like to produce joy in your master by killing the master or killing the divine and producing that gift that will just make them cry with joy and terror and to ejaculate in the very marrow of their birth.
You know a certain morphology of a certain scale of the war. You can immediately scan the geography of the higher wars happening in the higher planes of cultural avant-garde.
With the nature of the gift you can give them. And you stand clear, you stand in the clarity of what you mean in your frontal encounter. Like, there is nothing that can overthrow the decision of your logical field. If you stand in front of the divine, or if you stand in the exact caliber of your story, if you stand clear, precise in the caliber of your logic, there is no experience that can contradict the logic you stand in. And this is the very gift of Wittgenstein. You fucking read Wittgenstein and you get this point of fearlessness, which is clarity about the nature of faith, but also clarity about the fact that your identity and your being, your true nature is in the logical stance or the logical caliber that you stand in, or the whole resonance of your complex of beliefs. If you can stand in clarity on that, then you achieve fearlessness because you can discern that there is no experiential possibility, there is no experience that can happen outside of what is formed within your domain of belief. So if you have clarity on the nature of belief, if you have clarity on the nature of your own being, which is a field of existence, you understand that you are divinely responsible with the quality of the field of your existence, thus not only responsible in a common burdensome way, but creatively responsible, meaning that you have this continuous facing of the divine consort that is like highly in love with you, or highly intelligent, or highly cunning, or fiercely challenging you into a whole different dimension of the adventure. Like, whatever happens in your fucking life, whatever happens in the imagined conventional domain, you can stand in front of this fiercely, brutally in love, passionate divine being that is the whole logic of a universe, or the whole caliber of a story. You decide this possibility of being, you decide this dialogue of frames of being, you decide this possible dialogue of worlds within the fabric of your existence. You decide life as a dialogue of worlds. How stable can you be in the exact capacity of blindness? Blindness to this conventional space. You find yourself in an ordinary day, an ordinary place. How blind can you get?
There is a necessary lullaby of ignorance in this process of awakening to logical identity. This historical procession of awakening to subtle life. There is a stage of a kind lullaby of ignorance, this praise to the ideal of pure experience. With your hand, you can observe the geographies of these battles of spirit. With your hand, you can stand in the geographies of your homeland.
How wild can you get? Come on! What species of choice is there? How wild can you get? How ruthless? How ruthless can you get? My gushing love for the possibility of the Buddha is just this attaining of a life that is a dialogue between worlds, attaining of such a caliber of presence that is a dialogue between worlds. And if you want to be thoroughly advanced, you decide that these dialogues are like passionate, impassioned love. Like the encounter between these, the highest form of love possible is the one that produces revelation in you, that you stand in such a revelation of what life can be when you are thoroughly in love. And how ruthless can you be in discerning the voices of the broken hearts in this thicket of dense ignorance that is the very quality of the ordinary existence. Can you discern that? Can you awaken to this fucking war in the midst of the ordinary quality of life?
Exact exhaustion of the horses of a primitive capacity.
Everything, this standing in this encounter ripples in all of your domains of being, in the domains of your intelligence, in the domains of possible experience. And if you stand in the most fucking ordinary context, can you discern the war in it? Can you discern the exact war?
Travel in the experiential fields with this hand clarified in its transcendental equation to observe the resounding type of phenomena. Observe the choirs of their structural function.
Do you understand that you are in the very thick ignorance of it in the very ordinary quality of existence. In your stupid love, in your stupid, ignorant love, you are just overwhelmed by the real responsibility over everything else in your domain. How can you fucking enjoy life when you understand all the suffering that is in this world, in any location of time?
Observe this in the morphology of each destiny, how one attempts to renounce delusion so as to return to pure experience. This adolescent phase.
The future and in the past, everything changes. So this is the quality of the revelation of falling in love, which is again just another metaphor. So you can be so thoroughly clear or decisive in the fabric of your posture, the fabric of your standing. You stand in this discipline, and you can stand in the caliber of such an encounter, in the possibility of encounter of worlds in the fabric of your own existence. Okay.